What's up, everybody, and welcome to PPR podcast number 116, sponsored by the San Diego Strike Force. This will be the Week 2 recap and Week 3 preview show. As always, I'm Chase Izidoro, and today we are joined by the one and only Brandon Stone.
I'm just a simple man. That's why I brought my Teamster coffee. I am not up to the level of you and Bo with the regular mugs. Look like I'm debating things on the docks, but you know what? That's okay.
Well, once you get to that certain level, maybe we get you some nicer little mug. But I don't mind the paper cup.
We need podcast merch.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
I want a shirt that says "Friend of the Pod."
I think we can make that happen.
My policy when I'm on the pod. It's good. I will say before we even get started, it's good to see the growth of the Monday pod. It's good to see what you built base in year 1, and you're building up the base, you and Bo, in year 2. So that's really cool to see. Y'all done a great job with this. Well, I had to come here and milk some of your glory.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we both enjoyed doing this. You know, just having the chance to talk ball beyond the Friday nights is really what we enjoy the most.
Yeah.
Now let's get into it. We start off with game balls from last week. Really, there's no other way to start it off than Valhalla's Dominic Silva in their 48-12 win over Mar Vista. 28 carries, 252 yards, and 7 touchdowns. If you watch the tape, it's 3 yards in a cloud of dust the whole way through. But really, you have to shout out the offensive line as well on top of Dominic Silva. He was phenomenal. Both the offensive line was phenomenal as well.
And I want to shout out what Coach Cherry and the entire Norse group is doing. People this age may not realize it because they're not used to Valhalla having this sort of depth and relevancy. But people from my era that grew up with Pete Thomas and Ramsey and all those guys, Nehemiah Brunson, I think I have that right. But this whole lineage of great Valhalla players and great Valhalla teams, it's good that we're getting back to that. It deserves it. That's a really special area of the county. So I'm glad when they're seeing some success.
Absolutely. You know, it's still early for them, but he also had a great week 1 as well. When you watch the way he runs, and it looks like they're just going to run it with him almost every single play, something similar to maybe what we saw with Poway and Connor Rath.
Yeah.
You know, where could this kid go if potentially he's putting up these numbers all season?
I know where he could go. Some event that we have in November, something like that. I have to check my calendar.
I would agree with that as well. But another game ball has to go out to La Jolla Country Days quarterback, who we didn't really see much in week 1. We don't really know what the situation was there. But Jaden Mangini had himself a day. 12 of 14 throwing the ball for 149 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. Also had 12 carries for 58 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. That's more of what we were expecting from the man who will be a midshipman.
Salute to him. Quality guy. He plays just like Braxton does, but he has this different sort of flair to him. That's why I like him. It's going to be fun to watch him for the rest of the year.
It's kind of crazy to see someone still being used as such a multi-tool asset, you know, playing quarterback and linebacker. I mean, we saw that with Sam Cooper last year, but it still seems very odd today to have put your quarterbacks in those type of positions.
When you put your team on the back, it doesn't matter. When you've got the athleticism to play all over the place, you do it. And the key is, how do you use the rest of your weapons to take some of the pressure off you? That's what the challenge is going to be for Coach Hales and for the Tories as they keep going. Because they've got a good team. They've got a good base.
They really do.
Now it's about how are you going to build it and how are you going to keep your quarterback safe when they're doing double duty. UC had a way when they did it back then because they had Quentin Demara. Made it a lot easier to sub someone in and let them be the quarterback when you're doing that. We'll see what LJCD has to play with.
Absolutely. Another game ball going out to Mount Carmel's sophomore quarterback, Trevor Tomapeo. We see so many great sophomore quarterbacks, but Tomapeo's quietly had a great start to his sophomore campaign. 19 of 24 for 177 yards, 4 touchdowns to the air, added 49 yards and a touchdown on the ground in their 35-7 win over Henry.
He looked like his brother. That's what he looked like.
Absolutely.
And if you're going to look like your brother, that's a good thing. And if you want to be the Serena to his Venus, this is a great way to start the year out. So I'm excited to see where they go from here, especially because they got a fun matchup against Westview, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But Trevor's displaying all those same attributes. And it's cool to see it at such a young age as well.
And I think in a great offense as well. I think that's such a nice spot to be in, is to be the quarterback for a Drew Wessling offense, and to see a young guy get this opportunity and what he can grow into. Something we will definitely be keeping an eye on.
You kept your eye on something last week that was pretty impressive, I would say.
Man, that Mount Miguel team, I was very impressed across the board from them. But really, who is standing out has been senior quarterback Matthew Barton. 5 total touchdowns. I believe he had another great game in week 1 as well. But also Jeremiah Castillo. 3 receiving touchdowns. All of them looked phenomenal. And then the pick 6 off the tip drill. He is really someone who stands out to me as really having silver pigskin potential because he does it all for them, and he's going to rack up a bunch of yardage.
He did it all last year. He did it all the year before that, and he's doing it all right now, and that's why I agree with you that Jeremiah is on that silver pigskin track. Want to give some love to Mr. Barton. There were little whispers in the back. There were little whispers saying, oh, Mount Miguel's getting all this really cool talent on the outside, gaining all this speed. Is Matthew Barton the guy that can lead them to the promised land? It's almost as if people thought that Moses jumped out the back and Joshua had to carry the rest of the load. Well, guess what? Joshua's pretty darn good, okay? Talented guy, and really proving that he belongs here and that he can take charge of a high-profile offense. So I'm proud of him. I'm really proud of Jeremiah because there's pressure on him with a lot of these neat guys coming in, some of which who haven't even played yet. I think they're still down 9 starters. To say, oh, well, then we're going to find out if you're really that guy. Well, newsflash, he's that guy.
And I think something that's really stood out to me about this Mount Miguel team, one, the atmosphere around Mount Miguel. Seeing that big crowd, there was just as big of a crowd for the JV game as there was for the varsity game. That was impressive. But also talking to Coach V, taking this program from just around 30, 40 kids to now 90 kids throughout the entire program, that is significant for an area of this county that really needs to have kids going to that school.
Yeah.
And I think that's made such a major impact at such an early stage already.
It's a school that's part of the Fertile Crescent of San Diego, and the tough part about being in that Fertile Crescent is that everybody wants to take your skills away. So keeping those skills home and then doing what some other teams in that little crescent have done and take talent from other areas that used to take talent from them, it's a big deal. It really is a big deal. And I think the same way I think about Valhalla. It's nice when these places who traditionally have had really good teams but have fallen back a bit, it's really good to see them gaining back the attention. I love it.
I feel like that's kind of a theme that's been going around, at least to the start of this year. We'll touch on Westview in a little bit and Grossmont as well, but a lot of these teams are starting to get back to their old ways, especially Oceanside as well. We got the shout out for Coach getting his first win there.
Yes, Fale getting it done, 760 in the house, getting the first big win for him. It's going to be the first of a lot of wins. They've got a really nice freshman core along with these upperclassmen. They're sort of reteaching and recalibrating. But this freshman core that they're already building, I'm excited to see what that team's going to look like in 2 years.
And we talked about the game that I witnessed, but how about your game? Because that was the one that we identified as kind of being an interesting one because we know what UC can do. We know how great Damara is and Dixon, but we didn't know what Mission Bay would be, the wild card team because they have all these basketball athletes now. What was your takeaway?
So let's talk about that lineage of how this basketball thing came across. There were 5 seniors who've been really locked step together, and they said, let's do something new. Let's all just go play football. Charlie Hutchinson, who has been the most high profile of the Fab Five. This is our version of the Fab Five, right? He actually was best friends with and played quarterback, trading snaps in flag football middle school with Jackson Deal.
Wow.
I learned that at the game.
That
was
awesome.
Neat to learn. So he had already been a quarterback before. So he says, okay, well, I can throw. You two can play wide out. You can be a defensive end. You can basically be a linebacker, running back combo. And the 5 of them, Whitehurst, Korch, the other Charlie Grebbing, and ever said Isaiah Whitehurst's name already? I think I said all 5. Seeing all of them work that night was cool. But what I wanted to key in on was, just because those 5 are making a big difference, it doesn't discount from the other folks who are playing really well, like Charlie Taff, number 6, Joshua, I apologize, can't remember his last name, but number 6, he was great too. And then David Mayer, who caught the 2 touchdowns. It's a really cool team effort with Mission Bay. That's no dissing of UC, by the way. This is 2 straight games in which UC has been really competitive against LCC, playing up in D1, and then playing Mission Bay, who was playing like a D2 team, even though they're in D3. So there's still good reasons to bet high on UC. They shouldn't feel like, oh, UC's down. No, UC's played 2 tough teams in the first 2 weeks. So we need to give them a little time to get themselves together. They're also still got some youth to them, too. But that Mission Bay team, that team can go places. I'm really interested to see where they end up.
I agree with UC. I still think UC is a great team. Obviously, a very tough schedule ahead for them, so it will be tough down the stretch. But we expect more of the same from DeMar and Dixon as well.
Yeah.
It's something really
and
cool.
Jack Stahl, I think, was the defense. Yeah, 54. He was in on almost every tackle. He was really impressive too.
There's something really cool about that Mission Bay because it's so focused now on the football program aspect of all these schools of building up these kids from freshmen or even from Pop Warner. And then there's something cool about, hey, we're just the best kids at the school athletically, so let's play the sport.
Let's do it.
It's almost so backyardish. I love it.
It's like they should be coming to the school in Letterman jackets and the girls should have poodle skirts on. That's how it feels. It's really nice. Like everyone has a carton of Luckies rolled up in their sleeves. It's really nice. This is why you shouldn't have.
Yeah, exactly why. But we touched on Grossmont a little bit. Let's talk about them fully. Their 44-22 win over Olympian, going to 2-0 after being winless last year.
Anthony Lawrence.
It's beautiful to
job,
see it. I was
buddy.
a little concerned going into the season, not knowing what we were going to get out of them. But Hudson Herbert, 19 of 41 for 320 yards and 5 touchdowns. He did have 3 interceptions, but he's currently leading the county in passing yards. Senior wide receiver Cody Bigley, 9 receptions for 203 and 2 touchdowns. He's leading the county in receiving yards. Safety Joshua Ferreira, 4 interceptions, is leading the county in interceptions. And then defensive end Jacob Suter is 6 sacks, is also leading the county. I get it's 2 weeks, but if you came in here and said, yeah, there's going to be 4 kids from Grossmont leading some category in the county, I would be very, very shocked. I mean, you talk about getting off to a great head start to where you want to go. This is the perfect start for Anthony Lawrence.
Installing discipline and focus and installing a new offense that's brought the team into the 21st century in a real way. Hudson's been effective. Joshua Ferreira might be the leader right now for two-way player of the year. I think there's 2 other players. We mentioned one of them already with Mangini. There's another guy we're going to mention soon enough who are leading in that two-way player of the year category because they're doing it on all sides of the football. Cody Bigley has been playing big. They're also making big plays like the one we had up for play of the week in week 1. They're a team that you can tell. You can see that regeneration within them, and it's working. It really is working. The schedule also doesn't get easier for them,
Absolutely.
but they've got the good base, so they know, hey, we can win games. When you know you can win a game, it means you're going to be effective down the road. I want to talk about this next one here you have noted. This is an important one. We got to start talking more about Brant Barker. We got to start talking more about Chance LaChapa. The LaChapa name is a big deal around there in the El Cap parts, but the Barker, he was getting pretty big too. You mentioned here before, 4 touchdowns in the first half against Canyon Hills. I think that makes 11 for the season.
Yes, and
Brant Barker with 11 touchdowns.
And no interceptions.
And that's the big key. He can, Julian Sane is Julian Sane. But technically, is he not the best quarterback in the county right now as we speak today? Numbers-wise. Productions-wise.
Numbers-wise. I mean, it's him and Herbert.
I'm just saying.
It's him and Herbert coming down
and then Deal in the mix as well.
Exactly. I have to love just how many good quarterbacks are in this county, because now we're getting to the point where guys are getting overlooked who are really, really good.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I look at with Barker that really stands out, this is how good El Cap has been to start the year. He went 7 of 7 for 246 and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
He just threw 7 passes, 4 of them went in, and they were deep bombs. That's how good and how well they are operating right now, and they are going to be a threat for any team that comes up against them.
And we're not going to jump ahead because we still got to talk about El Cap La Jolla, which high key / low key might be the best game.
Yeah, 100%.
I couldn't take that one away from Allison. She might, I didn't want to get beat up at the sports desk. But it might be the best game in the county. She might be there till 11 o'clock just shooting the game because of the fire she's going to see from that one, honestly.
And LaChapa as well, 10 receptions for 284 and 6 touchdowns through his first 2 games. When you watch him, you can see the attributes that he has and what he can provide for any team. He's subtly one of the most underrated wide receivers in this whole county.
I agree with you. And then you had little sprinkles of Julian in there, and it's a team that can compete with anybody in the county. It really can.
I agree. And another player that had to come off at halftime because they were doing too well was Achilles Smith Jr., 9 for 11, 186 yards and 4 touchdowns in the first half. Makai Gray had himself an efficient day. 2 catches, both of them went for touchdowns for 119 yards. When you watch this Lincoln team, it's so hard to judge based off, who they've played against. Maybe compared to what we see from Carlsbad when they play against Inglewood, which I know we'll get that matchup later for Lincoln. But they have done everything that's been put in front of them. They have run up the score on everybody, even with their backups coming in.
And this was a revenge game for them because they went up to L.A. last year, very discombobulated, had no control, just made a bunch of silly mistakes. I think had 3 touchdowns called back. So this, for them, a lot of those seniors that had to suffer that as juniors, they said, we want to put on a big impression in this game. That's certainly what they did. They also looked a lot more composed than they did in the game in Hawaii. The game in Hawaii was a little sloppy. Like, guys, it took them a quarter and a half to finally settle down before they were scoring. Lincoln, I'm going to talk about, Makai Gray, you mentioned him. He had a big night. Dre Garner has been really impressive so far in his first 2 games, and been a great outside asset, the perfect asset that Smith needs to be effective. Aiden Jackson's caught the ball and run the ball. You could argue he's been their best all-around player. And Donald Reed technically leads that team in total yards right now. That's just from running the rock. So the offense is set up nicely. Jerome Roberts leading the way on defense, too. The Open Division champs are looking very Open Division-y at the moment.
Absolutely.
There's a big question. We're going to have our Top 9 Tuesday coming up here tomorrow. And this question, will it be Carlsbad or will it be Lincoln on top? And a lot of people are saying, well, it's got to be Carlsbad because they've had 2 big wins and 2 high-profile wins. An ESPN win, for goodness sakes. But the Open Division champs, I think they're trying to put people on notice and say, don't think that we're not where we were before. In fact, we may be better. Just because the guy from Georgia ain't here, you're forgetting all the other people that are also here already that didn't get a chance to showcase themselves in that way. So
absolutely, and
if that makes any sense.
Not to give away my entire top 9 until Tuesday, but I was struggling when it came down to Carlsbad and Lincoln for one, because I do believe it's a 1A, 1B situation. They are that close, but I'm not gonna, just say, oh, 1A, 1B. If I had to give the one, and this is how I'm separating it, I'm giving it to Carlsbad for the only reason is because of who they playing that Inglewood team on the road. It's hard for me to judge Waianae, and it's hard for me to judge Bishop Alamany, even though Lincoln did exactly what they were supposed to do in those games. But if there is that little bit of separation, it's the win on the road against Inglewood for me, for Carlsbad. But if you came down to it, who was going to play against each other right now, no idea who comes out on top. It's that close.
And not just a win in Inglewood, but a 2-score, 3-score win in Inglewood is a big deal, too.
Absolutely.
So just salt that thing away and put it away.
And they were just clinical against Modern Day.
What'd you think of the Saturday night game? You were there. What did you see from both sides?
I think Modern Day, for their offense, for them to get McMillan to work, they need to get better blocking up front. I understand Carlsbad has a great front 7 like they did last year, so it's very tough. But McMillan, every time he touched the ball, there was at least 2 guys already broken through the line, and so he just couldn't get going. So for Modern Day, they need to figure that out the best way they can, because that's how their offense is going to have to work. I liked what I saw from Cartel Purvis. I thought he was actually pretty good in that game.
He's talented, yeah.
And honestly, they played really good coverage. If you watched the Raw on our YouTube page, Julian Sane is running the entire game.
Yeah.
He's using his legs. And I even asked him after the game, I was like, how tired are you? He's like, I'm pretty tired. He was like, he talked about, he knew they were going to have great coverage down field, so he knew he was going to have to use his legs, and he just made the most of it. So if they can make the most of, maybe having a guy to spy the quarterback next time, to get after him on that second level, to rush up, because it kind of seemed like more of the D line was the one chasing Julian. But that's what really kind of got away from them, because really their only passing touchdowns came from, there was some big plays that Julian missed over the top, but it came from one-on-one great coverage where they made incredible catches.
Yeah, like Sanfrini.
Yeah, Sanfrini, Rosenblum, and then obviously Mason Walsh has really been the one who stood out the most to me. He might arguably be the best running back in San Diego. I know McMillan has a great argument for that case, but man, that guy is so tough to take down.
A world beater.
He really is, and he was taking hit after hit. He was like, every time I saw him get tackled, his head was slamming on the turf, and he just kept going. I mean, he's really, really impressive, and one of the most underrated players, I think, in this county.
Absolutely. Any other game balls you want to give out before we talk about Week 3?
So we will talk about some more game balls in the Week 3 preview, because we're going to talk about their team, but we got a couple more coming down the line, but those were really the biggest standouts so far. But now we move on to Week 3. And we're going to talk about the game of the week, which will be in the honorable.
Games plural, kind of.
Exactly. Which is 0-1 Brophy from Phoenix taking on my Cathedral Catholic Dons.
That's what he always does. He always goes. By you, my.
It's almost like the Ohio State, but it's my Cathedral Catholic Dons. That's how I'm going.
You can watch my eyes roll, as you say. Anyway,
fine by me. Fine by me. You bring that up with the CIF and state titles. But really, if we want to talk about game balls, it goes to Ethan Ford. 4 rushing touchdowns in this last week. I've watched the tape, and Jack Stevens was still spreading it out and throwing it and using his legs as well. But Ethan Ford has shown that he can be that kind of big-time running back for this Dons offense. I think they need to feed him again, but we are going to need to see more of the passing game from Stevens, especially to guys like Anthony Taylor and Charlie Apps.
Looked like they went away from the running game. They went away from the passing game in that Chaminade game, but also Chaminade, they had a great running offense, and unfortunately, Cathedral just couldn't stop it. I want to see what Ty Cortez could do. Want to see what Anthony Taylor could do. Want to see what all these guys could do. And the high-profile lights. I'm not going to pretend like I know what Brophy's going to do. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the dark on them as well. But I know if you're going to have this big moment at Cathedral, you do need to show out. And so I think this team will be well prepared for it.
And in terms of teams that schedule hard every year, no matter what, Steel Canyon to me is always at the top of that list. That schedules hard no matter what. And then Cathedral on a different level is number 2.
Absolutely. So. I agree. And we talk about another Honor Bowl game, which will be 2-0 Oak Hills playing 2-0 Madison.
Yeah.
Same thing. Don't really know too much about Oak Hills, but what I do know is that Jalen Brown is making an argument to be on the podium at some point at the end of the year.
Quite the argument.
He is really, really good, man. I was watching him mostly from a defensive back point of view, and then now just getting to see what he can do at the running back position. He is shifty. I love the way he runs.
I remember last year I was having a conversation with his grandfather in the parking lot, and he was talking about, I'm just trying to, get my kid to understand the talent within him. And I looked him straight in the eye, and I said, you need to make sure your grandson knows that if he sticks to what he's doing, sticks to everything he's doing in the classroom, sticks to everything he needs to do on the field, sticks to everything he needs to do to be a good teammate, that he's going to be one of the 10 best players in this county by the end of the year, and nobody understands this except for you and me in this parking lot and the Madison coaching staff. And so it's good to see that that's exactly what's happening to a kid like that. It's really neat to see. And one thing I do know about this Oak team is that they're one of the 40 best teams in California. Here's the issue. So is Madison.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be a real clash of the Titans. The 4 o'clock game might be better than the 7 o'clock game.
And honestly,
when it comes to the Honor Bowl matchup. A couple other guys I was thinking about when I was looking at Madison. I saw them week 1 and then watching the tape against Steele week 2. Titus Toilolo, still great as a DB safety merge. Makes life much easier for Martell Hughes. And then Mackay.
Yeah.
It took me 2 quarters to realize that Mackay was the skinny guy on the outside. The guy that was playing D tackle last year has now become one of the rangiest. I don't even know what to call his position, because he can still play at the line of scrimmage. He can still play like a linebacker. They had him playing in the back safety wise. He looks like a safety, plays like a down lineman. Get out of town. Just get out of town. I don't know what you do with a guy like that.
I know. And this Madison defense, I can't talk enough about it. They are really, really good at all levels. One of the players that obviously stands out to me as well is James Taval, and what they've done with him at the running back position as well. Almost a similar situation to what we see at Granite, where these guys look like they should have kind of 2 different running styles between him and Brown, but they almost run similarly.
Yeah.
And it's a great 1-2 punch to have, and it really helps out parents.
Boy, that game in week 6 is going to be a barn burner.
Yeah, it really is.
Granted, Madison, oh boy.
So
I won't be going to that game.
So now we go to the National City Malacar South Bay game of the week. 1-1 Del Norte going to 0-2 Eastlake. Eastlake finally getting themselves a team against San Diego.
They finally get to be on the show.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't send me any emails. I was like, don't you send me emails because you ain't on the show.
When we look at Del Norte, obviously they got off to a hot start. Maybe LCC was just a little bit too much for them because LCC is on the hot start as well. This could be a very good matchup for them to take on an Eastlake team while still testing themselves against a program that should have a lot of big kids on their squad.
I'm looking at the Del Norte offensive line. Terry Howe, I think is how you say his last name, and that offensive line. They got him 212 yards last week. They're going to need a little bit more because Eastlake is a funky team. They're always hard to sort of ascertain those first 5 weeks because they play a lot of teams out of town, so it's hard to match them up against the teams in town and know exactly what they've got. They're Gabellas. I want to see the step up from there. Christian, he's got 20 tackles this year, so as long as he's a tackling machine, they got another guy, Kingston something or other, that I want to see on offense a little bit. If they've got those guys moving in motion, then Eastlake could have a pretty nice night. But Del Norte, they want that big breakout win. They really do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this could be the perfect place to ignite it for them. If Schneider's on his game and Ty's on his game and the rest of them, this game's either going to be tight, or it's going to be a Del Norte good night. I'm not sure which one it's going to be yet till we get there.
I agree. And I love the storylines that we've had so far this season to start off the year of these teams going against each other. Kind of so many prove-it games of where are you guys actually with your program and this team.
Yeah.
I think it's another situation right here. But now we move on to the North County game of the week. 1-1 Steel Canyon at 2-0 San Marcos. I feel like San Marcos is getting a featured game every week, and probably with good reason.
For good reason.
Creed Machielli and Jason Nix, I mean, they blow me away, the combination they have on the field. Justice Woods as well has been really good for them. But this San Marcos team, I think being in D1, I think they can hang around. It's going to be interesting how they can play up to, say, the taller guys in D1. But, I mean, they have all the weapons. One guy I really want to mention who's, subtly made a big impact is Jake Voorhees. Yeah, I saw him block the field goal that led to the scoop and score, and then he also had the strip sack this past week. He's subtly made a huge impact in their games.
Yeah. I want to give all the credit to Jace Nix, a guy, a receiver who did not get a bunch of credit. It's hard when you're sitting next to Josh Ball last year, and he's doing his astronomical things, and you're just kind of fighting for some oxygen in terms of attention. But Jace Nix has proven why he is a top-tier recruit in the county, and he makes Creed's job a lot easier. That's not taken away from Creed. It's saying when you've got a wide receiver, number one, that you can go to and get to when you're under duress, makes life easier. That's all. That's all I'd say about that.
And Steel Canyon having a great Week 1 win against Heritage following this past week. But the one guy who's been standing out is this Jonathan Sablon, the running back. When I watch him, he adds a different dynamic to their offense. Also, the lefty quarterback, Joshua Herbert, when I saw him on 7-on-7, he looked pretty good to me. I don't know, San Marcos is playing at a really high level, but we know what Steel Canyon is capable of, and they've been playing some very tough opponents to start out.
That Grossmont Steel Canyon game's going to be fun.
Yeah, it really is.
When it's the battle of the brothers, I think that it's going to be really exciting. Sablon's been effective, not just because he's good, but because the Steel Canyon offensive line is very big.
Yeah, it is.
I was standing next to them during the scrimmage they had against Morse, and it's like I'm seeing so many. I mean, I know I'm getting older, so everyone's getting taller than me, but so many kids that were a helmet over me, and I'm going, this is the key.
Yeah.
When you give Scott Longerbone a line that's thick and can follow direction, he will put the skill players around it to be able to be effective. And so that, I think, is going to really fuel Steel Canyon in this game. They got a really good shot of getting an upset on the road. But the key is, do they have enough bodies to stop Jace and stop everyone else around them at the same time? Mirror Meson's got a lot of bodies, and they couldn't pull it off. So Steel Canyon, can you pull that off?
Yeah, absolutely. And then we go.
I don't know.
We go on to now the Jersey Mike City game of the week. 1-0 Granite Hills at 2-0 St. Augustine. I feel like I say the same thing about St. Augustine every single week. Is now we're going to find out who this team actually is. I said it week 1. I said it in week 2. We're definitely saying it now in week 3. Listen, this is going to be a tall task to beat this Granite Hills team, especially this Granite Hills defense. I'm on board with them being arguably the best defense in the county. But I'm really been impressed with what Brady Palmer has been doing. Not that big of a game in week 1, obviously, because they were running the ball basically from the second quarter on. But a huge game last week against a big program in Poway. 13 of 16 for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. 7 carries for 107 yards and a touchdown. One of those coming from the one run that he took to the house. Yeah. I mean, he's really showing to be one of the best young quarterbacks in this county.
And Willie Brown had a nice night, too. I don't want to discount him. He had a nice night running the ball. I'm looking at Big Bronx going up against the Moshi Pit. That's where the game's going to be won. The game's going to be won in the trenches between Saints' young but tough offensive line going up against Granite Hills' veteran, skilled defensive front. It's like a 3-3-5 defense they run, but they put down 4 linemen because they can switch the edge rusher. Sometimes they go 3 on the line, sometimes they go 4 on the line. They're going to make a lot of different modifications. They're not afraid to send safeties down on a blitz. There's going to be a lot for that young offensive line to deal with in this one, but they're big, they're hungry, and they're smart. They're a giant skills-led offensive line, which means they're going to be really tough. And they're going to give Granite Hills some problems.
I think so.
As much as we fawned over Granite's line in week 1, Mission Hills' offensive line was doing plenty.
Yeah, it was.
And the Saints' offensive line is just as talented as the Mission Hills' offensive line is. So if they can open the holes and make the spaces, the Saints are going to have an incredible opportunity to get what would be the biggest upset so far of the season. Can they do it? Yes. Will they do it? I'm not going to go that far. But can they? Absolutely.
I think I'm on the side of I think Granite Hills has potential to make this a lot further away of a competition than it can be. I think Saints can put up a good fight, but they need to break down that Granite Hills offensive line, which is massive. And they work so well as a unit and so well of getting to their respective blocks. And it helps Pablo Jackson and Maxwell Turner just run all over the field. One thing I'm looking at is the injuries and the guys who are missing. Do we get Travis Ford? When I talked to Josh Zander, he said he was trying to come back for the Saints game, and it helped that they had that week 2 bye. I don't know where he's going to be at. Maybe he comes back the week after. But I think that would be huge for Zachary Benitez. I think Granite Hills has a chance to really put on a show here. I'm all aboard on the Granite Hills train.
Yeah, it's an easy train to be on.
Yeah. And now we talk about the El Cajon Ford East County game of the week, which might be my favorite matchup on the list. 2-0 La Jolla at 2-0 El Cap. You want to talk about great quarterbacks to start the season. We talked about Brant Barker, but Jackson Deal continues to impress, especially when he works for the PPR as the Pigskin Idol. There's something special about handing the guys the microphone and be like, hey, talk to your teammates like he did last Friday night. Take a listen here.
Sawyer, 2-point conversion on the last play, game on the line. What were you thinking?
I was thinking about my mom. I got to make this play for my mom, and that's what happened.
You got 2 touchdowns tonight. What was working well between you and me?
It's like seeing the middle of the field open, getting across the middle, like across the safety's face, like just getting my routes there and clearing space. So like just getting across the middle into the touchdown.
It's always awesome when they can make big plays, especially in a game like that where it comes down to the end. One guy who I think has stood out the most has been Sawyer Mosley on the defensive line. From when I've watched the tape, he is a wrecking ball for La Jolla and coming up big on the play to win the game against Scripps Ranch. But really, it's going to be a huge passing attack between Jackson Deal and Brant Barker. I cannot wait for this game.
Here's what you need to know about Jackson Deal. We just played the interview. He comes walking in the station, and all I see is that the final score is 17-15. I don't know why or how it got to be that score. And I go, hey, Jackson, you're the man. Good to see you. He's like, yes, thank you. Yeah. I said, how was the game? How was the game? It was good. We played well. Oh, man, well, it's really good to have you in the station. Good luck out there. Thank you. Thank you very much. Then I go and watch the highlights, and they went on a 2-point conversion stop after being up 17-2, and the guy's acting like, he just got back from lunch, and he's just going to, settle into 5th period. He's even keel. When you get a quarterback that's even keel, it means he keeps everybody else at peace. No wonder the defense was able to stop them on a 2-point conversion. They probably were just as lackluster of excitement as he was, I don't know. But again, that is a wild and rowdy coaching staff. They probably did all the yelling and hooting and hollering, so Jackson's just like, I have this. Everything is good. He's like Chat GPT. He's flat. But I like that about him. And I think it's going to be an aerial assault. This game's going to be like 47-42.
I agree.
It's going to look like Big 12 football on a Saturday night. It's going to be a throwback. It's going to be like Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech going against Baker Mayfield or something. It's going to be wild.
I absolutely agree. I cannot wait for this game. Also, if we want to talk about, yes, the rowdy coaching staff, but we will have the Sounds of the Game segment for Jet Thomas. If there's anybody that does all the talking in a great way, it is him.
It's Jetterson. Okay.
When I had him mic'd up and I was listening in the earpiece to what he was saying, I was cracking up the whole time.
That's great.
Great kid. I cannot wait for that segment.
That's good. That'll be fun.
But now we get on to the Pigskin Idol game. The 2-0 Mount Carmel Sun Devils taking on the 2-0 Westview Wolverines.
Good, because I got something to say about this game, so good.
Good old used to be Palomar League rivalry. When I watch these guys on 7-on-7, there is no love lost because these guys all grew up with each other, probably played Little League or basketball or football all together, and it shows. Yeah. And even in the 7-on-7 game at 8 o'clock in the morning at LCC, these guys were going at it. I cannot wait for this game.
And I want to talk about, people need to understand on the map, there's one exit, there's Black Mountain Road, and that takes you to Westview, and then the one after that takes you to Mount Carmel. And there's a reason why they all just love to just scramble in it. I can't remember which group of old dudes sponsors that one, Rotary, Lincoln, I don't remember. But the point is that's really good. Brian Lloyd of Westview, real deal.
Yeah.
I talked about guys who are up for two-way player of the year. Put this man on the list. 8 catches for 3 touchdowns, and he's got 2 picks this year.
Yeah. He's phenomenal.
Effective. And then the other Mason Walsh has been good as well. Take no offense to being called the other Mason Walsh, because it's like 1A and 1B.
I know. Right when I first saw him at 7-on-7 and I saw the roster, I was like, let me go double check that. Are you sure you're Mason Walsh? And he's like, yes. But he's been great. So
did he acknowledge the other Mason Walsh when you?
Oh no, he just told me his name.
Okay.
But then also someone else who's been great has been Amari Gomez for them as well. Westview, it's another program where you'd like to see them get back to where they were and what they used to be, and especially going up against now the new big Mount Carmel. We've seen Axel Enrique has been great for them as well. Tomapeo. So this is just going to be a huge matchup. I cannot wait for the highlights on this one.
I think it'll be fun too. And Jaden Velasquez will be the pigskin idol for this. So it'll be fun to hear his thoughts on the desk. So
I love the direction of getting football players to do the pigskin idol so they could call their own game and be their own players.
Don't be afraid. And the biggest thing is if you lose the game, it's fine too. Don't be afraid of like, oh, I got to stand here after we lost. Now that makes us love you even more, you know?
Absolutely.
It means you have that faith inside you. I love seeing that. I want to see more big players. Imagine Julian in here reading a game.
Oh, it'd be phenomenal. I'm telling you right now, if we could get La Jolla's Jet Thomas to read a game, I'll do it every single time.
Every time.
Every single time.
See, we already used our La Jolla kit.
I know.
You stuck.
Used it up.
You know?
But that will do it for this episode of the PPR podcast number 116. Tune in tomorrow for PPR podcast number 117.
You had better.
Featuring Mount Miguel's two-way player, Jeremiah Castillo. He will be sitting down with Paul and Bert.
Oh, I didn't know that. I just learned this today.
But that'll do us for here now, and we'll see you guys next time.
Good night and good luck.